Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of the BG Show. I'm here to talk about Tom Hardy and Austin Butler's new movie, The BIKERIDERS, which came out last night. I saw it last night. I'll start with my non-spoiler thoughts first, so I won't spoil anything. Let me just get right into it. I thought this movie was rock solid. Not a perfect movie, but a very good movie. I think this is the rare movie that kind of encompasses all of the fan bases. I was just talking to my friends in my group chat, where normally we don't all like the same movies, and I was like, yeah, this is the rare movie where I think everyone's going to like it. Obviously, if you're a fan of Tom Hardy, I think you really like this movie. He does a really, really strong performance. I thought Austin Butler did a good job. Jodie Comer, who I don't know as well, I thought she did a good job, but I gotta say, her voice was very grating throughout this movie, which really bothered me. Maybe I'll get some shit for that. I thought her acting was good. I just thought her voice was just really driving me nuts. But yeah, to continue to go over the plot, non-spoilers. I guess the biggest comparison for a lot of people will be Sons of Anarchy, which I liked as well. Definitely a different vibe, that being a show, this being a movie. So a totally different vibe, but a very, very good movie. I thought there were some slight holes or some kind of plot details which I didn't love. But overall, I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was well-paced. There were not a lot, but there were a few pretty gnarly scenes, fight scenes, which were pretty gnarly. I think it does a good job of kind of showcasing, I think, the positives and negatives of being in kind of a motorcycle club like this. I'm not too versed, especially, on really how accurate it is. I know it's based on a book, but nonetheless, I think this is definitely a solid movie. If you're looking for a movie to see this weekend, I definitely would recommend it, and I would be confident doing so. The only way I can kind of see you not liking this movie is maybe if you don't like Austin Butler, you don't like Tom Hardy, because they're kind of both doing, I think, kind of like their thing in this movie. I don't want to say Austin Butler's acting like Elvis, but it's kind of like a little bit adjacent. It's kind of like in the same mold. And Tom Hardy is doing kind of like that voice, almost like a similar voice. I want to say it to like when he played the Jewish guy in Peaky Blinders. But yeah, a solid movie, not action movie, but a solid, you got some good fights, you got some funny moments, some really, really good hanging out with the club, which I think is important, because when you make a movie like this, you really, really want the guys to be hanging out. You don't just want it to be mission to mission, to fight to fight. So some really good scenes. Michael Shannon, I thought, was maybe the positive of the movie for me. Some really, really good side performances from Michael Shannon, from Norman Reedus. I thought those two were kind of the highlights of kind of the side characters. But now, this is your official spoiler warning. I will be getting into spoilers. Like I said, I highly recommend seeing this movie this weekend. If you don't want to be spoiled, do not move forward. I will now be going into spoilers. Okay, so this movie, I'd say Austin Butler is the main character of this movie, and I guess his wife/girlfriend, Jodie Comer's character. But Austin Butler plays a character named Benny, who I guess is kind of the, badass, or the guy who's kind of the most into motorcycle riding and bike riding of all of them. He kind of comes in contact and meets Johnny, who's Tom Hardy's character, who I'd say is kind of, even though he's leading the club, I wouldn't say he's the main character. I'd say he's the supporting actor in this movie. And it was just a really, really good, well-paced movie. I think there's a lot of people who are going to be disappointed that they didn't lean, as much into the drama or as much into the fighting as they could have. But I thought they kind of, I don't want to say toed the line, but they kind of stayed on course very well. I think the movie looked good. It sounded good. The set pieces were good. There were a couple of scenes where I was like, oh yeah, that's 2024, that's 2024. But other than that, I felt pretty immersed in it. I guess the biggest spoiler I can think of, obviously, is that at the end of the movie, Tom Hardy's character, Johnny, gets shot, surprisingly. They meet up in, I guess what you can say is a challenge. This kid who's kind of a side character, who's been... it's actually good filmmaking. It's kind of classic filmmaking. They have this kind of storyline over here, and it slowly but surely creeps its way over into the main storyline. Essentially, there's this kid who we kind of see is like 20 years old. He wants to be a bike rider. He notices them driving by in the beginning, but he comes from a very broken home, domestic violence, and he's just like a bad kid. But we figure he's not really just a bad kid. He just maybe wants to, come into the club. And so eventually they have this kind of face-off in a parking lot. And so at this fight, they basically, fists or knives. Do you want a fist fight? Do you want a knife fight? The guy says knife fight, and you think they're about to get into a knife fight, but he just pulls out a gun and shoots Tom Hardy, and he dies. I wasn't so surprised that he was dead, because kind of throughout the movie, the format of the movie is, this is based on a book where a writer slash photographer kind of interviewed people, and throughout the movie, this guy is interviewing Jodie Comer's character, and you can kind of tell that she's talking in past tense, and you can kind of tell. I actually thought that Austin Butler and Tom Hardy were both dead based on the way she was talking, but as it turns out, her and Austin Butler are still married at the end of the movie. And I guess this was kind of the part of the movie that I had a bit of an issue with, is I thought the end of the movie, I don't know what they were going for. I just don't think it really landed. I guess you're subverting expectations because you kind of think this guy's going to die, but now he's just like living as a mechanic in Florida. And it kind of had the vibes of like, I guess, someone leaving the Sopranos crew in a way, and kind of just living like a low-key life. So I think, I don't want to say they were getting artsy at the end, but I feel like they could have just had a badass ending of like all the guys riding out, and they kind of tried to get a little bit sentimental. Tom Hardy dying reminded me a little bit of Adam Sandler dying in Uncut Gems, where I feel like they were just going for a death to have a death. I think that they could have just had Tom Hardy kick that kid's ass again, and it would have been just as good. But I know there are a lot of people who, want this to be, it's not a superhero movie. It's a movie that should have some kind of down moments, or even end on a down moment. So it definitely ends on more of a solemn kind of tone. But overall, I thought it was really good. Getting into the other, side characters, Michael Shannon does a great job. He's funny. He plays just kind of like this uneducated kind of like stoner drunk guy who just kind of loves riding bikes, and I think he does a really good job. Norman Reedus makes more than a cameo, he's a side character, but he kind of shows up and does a great job threatening to kill someone, just being funny, drinking. I don't watch The Walking Dead, but I know he rides a motorcycle a lot on that show, and I think in real life too. I know a lot of people actually wanted him as Ghost Rider in the MCU, so it was pretty cool to see him doing that. Other than that, other spoilers, I mean, there's just a lot of good scenes. A guy in the bike, in the club wants to be a cop, a motorcycle cop, and they kind of beat him up. Different storylines like that. From a filmmaking standpoint, it just kind of looked good. I don't even know how to describe it, but there are some movies where you're not really into it. This was certainly one of those where you're into it. Talking about the fights that were gnarly, I mean, guys getting, slashed on their faces, people getting hit in the heads with shovels, people getting their ankles broken. So really, really good stuff like that, burning down bars. So it really just shows you kind of the descent from this club, from kind of a social thing into more of kind of a crime thing, and how it just kind of goes downhill. And as the chapters kind of, more and more chapters get created, they kind of lose their identity. So that's my review of The BIKERIDERS. I thought it was a very solid movie. I'm glad I saw it. I would recommend seeing it this weekend, especially if you're a fan of Tom Hardy and Austin Butler. I think it's just continues the momentum that Austin Butler has made, kind of putting himself into more of an A-list movie star. You kind of hear the Elvis voice a little bit, and I know he's not for everyone, but overall, I thought he did a good job. I thought he was believable. They must have smoked like 10,000 fucking cigarettes in this movie if they were real, and I think they were. Knowing Tom Hardy, he was just ripping cigs. So that's my review of The BIKERIDERS. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Subscribe if this is my first time on your channel. I'd really appreciate it. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.